part of my slideshow. Um, Hold on, let me click OK. And This is my 13th year doing preschool science. Before I had my son in my previous teaching life, I was a special educator in a middle school setting, and then I totally changed gears and became an early childhood educator. And I can't believe it took me so long to get here because I love the little humans that I work with, and their minds amaze me every day. So I am going to go ahead and pull up my slideshow. Like Beth said, I am fine with questions at any time because I know how I am when I'm watching a presentation. I don't want to have to write down, oh, I got to remember to ask this. If something comes up that you have a question about or clarification or even an idea that you want to share, please do so. That's what I love about these kind of settings. So let me click share. And I'm going to do, whoop, hold on. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see that. I'm going to move our little pictures to the corner so I can see. All right. So I don't have a super awesome long title like Beth. Beth, that was a lot of words in your
That's a
title.
lot of words.
It's a lot of words to remember. I actually didn't give myself this title. I usually just say I'm a preschool science teacher. But one day I heard my director talking about me to some parents that were touring our school, and I was described as the science coordinator and instructor. And I was like, ooh, that's a lot of words. I like that. So currently, I am at North Star Learning Center in Richardson. We are housed in Canyon Creek Presbyterian Church, but we have our own section of the building. Um, and this is my fifth year there. At my first 3 years at North Star, I also worked at another church-based preschool, and I'll show you some pictures of what our outdoor setting was like there. And then my first 7 years doing preschool science, I was actually at First United Methodist Church Learning Academy in downtown Garland, and I do have a few. It was surprisingly, as long as I was there, I don't have that many pictures of the setting. I guess I'm too busy. I'm in the action with the kids. I don't have time to take pictures. So anyway, but I will show you what that setting was like because what I really want everyone to understand is if you have access to any kind of outdoor space, that is the space to be doing science with little humans. Um, so anyway, and I really, really like this quote by Edwin Hubble, equipped with his five senses, and obviously, well, let's slice out man and say humans explore the universe around them and call the adventure science, because that is very much my philosophy. Science is an adventure, and this is the time to get all of those squirrels and hamsters in the wheels moving in their brain because they are already explorers and they are already amazed by the world. So I just really believe on capitalizing on that. And then the picture in the corner, that is my science classroom. We do science on the blanket when we're not up exploring, because I do all of science outside, no matter what, the topic is. All right. So when I've presented about this before, sometimes people are like, you do science with preschoolers. Now, obviously, you're all educators, so you're probably not surprised by that. But a big reason why young learners love science and it really resonates with them are all of these things. And some of these things speak to me too, like natural curiosity, connecting them with the real world, especially their environment. Um, I think about the first scientists who were naturalists and collectors and observed, asked questions, experimented. And that sounds exactly like our young learners. I know there's several master naturalists that are watching right now. And to me, it's like all of the little humans are master naturalists once they have permission to do that, to explore, to want to do. So again, learning by doing, science is naturally interactive. Um, and what I'm going to talk about today is definitely hands-on exploration and discovery. And then science education, um, really for me, I think about how it teaches their brain to grow. So it tells them, yes, I can learn big things. The big thing with my students, it's okay if my guess is wrong. When we do scientific method right at the beginning of the year, and I know that as we get older, we're more and more so like that. Like, oh, I don't want to guess because I might be wrong. But that's if you already knew what was going to happen, that's not really exploring or investigating or science. So it's like it's okay if you guess wrong. You have to be brave enough to make a guess. And I really try to work with them on that. It tells them they can figure things out. It tells them don't give up, keep trying, figure something else out. Um, and especially, I can be brave, a big one with our little humans. I can wait my turn because what I always say to them is everyone gets a turn, but it's not always your turn. And I can explore my world, that it's okay, that this is a safe space for me to do that. The one in the center, I have really noticed in the last few years, I guess, I mean, COVID changed a lot of things, but I have encountered a lot of fear in my students, just afraid of the natural world. Afraid, if we talk about, oh, we found a coyote track or a bobcat, oh, is it going to eat me? And it's like, not everything is going to eat you. And I currently also work at the Herd Museum in McKinney. And when I do an animal presentation, they're convinced everything's going to bite them. And so I really try, it's like anything with a mouth could bite you. I could bite you. But that's, if we have a respect and respect the space of wild animals, we don't have to be scared of the outdoor world. Developing critical thinking, inspiring lifelong love of learning. Many of the parents of the students that I've had in the past, I get messages from in Facebook, and they'll say, this is what they brought home today. And it'll be, and this is years and years later. And they'll say, I know you're the one that taught them, like, it's okay to explore, it's okay to investigate this and want to know why. And then naturally, as human beings, Beth and I were talking before the presentation. As adults, we kind of forget that wonder and that investigating and trying to figure things out. But our brains are naturally wired for that. And especially when they're young and they haven't been taught by the world, no, don't do that. So capitalizing on that sense of exploration and inquiry is huge. And then specifically for outdoor spaces, this is beyond even learning. This is like a whole body experience. So obviously, active play, running, climbing, that's building their physical bodies as well as building their brains. For me, the digging, I've been a gardener for a long, long time, but one of the most amazing things I learned way back when I was just a gardener and not a preschool educator, was what soil microbes, that the bacterium that gets released when you're digging in the soil actually activates neurotransmitters in your brain and makes you feel better. So people who are like, I feel so much better when I've been out gardening or been out digging or just been outside walking in nature. It's all of that is triggering in our brains. Obviously, I've read several books about the human gut microbiome and all of the reasons why they think that we have such a high number of allergies now, and all of, there are a lot of factors in our world, but the fact that we aren't as exposed to soil microbes and natural microbiome outside is affecting us physically and mentally. Um, Obviously, experiential learning can happen outside. That's that hands-on exploration and observation. And I love organic teachable moments. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. But I try to, if they find something and they want to know about it, a big thing I teach, I know I'm kind of like, whoo, I want to share so many ideas all at the same time. But if they find something and they want to know about it, I want to follow that line of inquiry. And another thing that I try to get across in all with all the little humans that I talk to or and work with is sometimes I don't know the answer because I want them to also understand adults do not know all of the everything. And that's okay. I say, hey, I don't know about that. This summer, a student really wanted to know about jellyfish. And I was like, I don't know that much. And she was like, wait a minute, you don't know about that? And it's like, well, I've never really researched that. I said, you know what? I'm going to see you tomorrow. Let me go and find out a little bit more about that. And you find out a little bit more, and let's put our heads together and share that. So it's like, trying to teach them, yes, well, for one thing, old people can still learn. I don't want them to understand that because eventually they're going to be old people and I want them to still be learning. But, sometimes adults don't know all the everything, and it's okay that that happens. So, and then what I love about using the outdoors in educating in science or science education is it's an alternative to the daily classroom stuff, which I know is important and has its place, but it's a break from screens. Hopefully, we don't have a lot of screens going on in early childhood education, but I know that it does happen. And they're on their screens way too much. That's a whole other thing. I'm not going to go into that, but it's showing them all of this outdoors. I have kiddos that are with us from early in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. So then we know they go home and it's pretty much dinner, bath, bed. And then they're back with us the next morning. And so us giving them daily outdoor time, not just the science time, the outdoor open exploration playtime may be the only time they get that during the week. And so we really prioritize that at my school. And then it can be anywhere you have outside, make it count. So I'm going to show a little bit more about the different places that I've done some of the things. And like I said, just giving the kids, even if it's not verbal permission, like, yes, you can go dig a hole, but just not telling them, no, you can't dig a hole is giving them permission to do that exploring. So, I think I went too far. Yes.
Jenny,
No.
how much time are the kids spending outside in your building?
In my current at North Star, they have an hour of scheduled outdoor classroom time. And so I teach out there twice a week. I do science out there twice a week, but every day, and that's during the school day because we do have a lot of kiddos that are with us, into the afternoon. So an hour outdoor classroom time every day. And then in the afternoon, we have a lot of combined classes, but they also, when the weather allows it, they're outside in the afternoon as well. And so we do have like it's like a more traditional playground. Our building is kind of shaped like a U, and so it's like that fake turf grass stuff.
Yes, yeah, turf.
Yeah. So when the weather doesn't allow us to be out because it's super muddy or whatever, that they do have access to that as well. But a lot of our teachers prefer to go to the outdoor classroom. For one thing, it's bigger, and the kids, I mean, there are some, and you'll see in my pictures, there are some like elements that we've added. We've got some tables, we've got a sandbox, we've got things like that. But mostly the kids are just, they're doing so many things. Like we just provide the loose parts and they do all the things. And that's at the end of the presentation, I try to show like my job is just to put the stuff out there. It's their brain that's going to come up with what they're going to do with it. And so our teachers especially over the last few years, have really been more drawn to that in the afternoon because honestly, it's easier for them because it's not like, don't do this, don't jump off the top of it, don't, it's just do. So, all right. So I guess that was my next slide. So when I say I do all of science outside, these are the things that I do. I have like a whole scope and sequence that I developed from the pre-K TEKS for the science domain. And that's pretty much broken down into physical science, earth and space science, and life science. And then these are the types of things that we do throughout the year. This is from a flyer that I made for our parents. We do a specials open house at the beginning of the year, second or third week of school. And we have an art teacher, a librarian, a PE teacher, a music teacher, and then me. I have a classroom inside, but it's not really my classroom. We call it the STEAM room because it's our loose parts universe. So I consider myself the curator of that room. So that's like a whole other element inside that's focused on free exploration. And again, I put the things out there, their brain does the rest, and what they come up with is just amazing. So, but like I said, these are the three main areas. These are all of the different things that we talk out about. But again, the center where the objectives, I want them asking questions and I want them looking for answers. And sometimes they think of things in a way that I could never, my old brain could never think of. And I want to encourage them to try new things. Again, like that overcoming fears, being brave enough to make that guess, and especially exploring the world around them. And then discovering that science is everywhere and we spend a lot of time having fun. I have said for the many years that I've done that, I know I'm having a lot of fun and it looks like the kids are having a lot of fun. So anyway, I don't know if as we go through, you guys have some questions about specific activities. I'm happy to answer any of those questions. I'm focusing on things that I specifically do that you could do really anywhere outside. And the next few things that we're going to talk about is it's definitely going to be messy. So everybody emotionally prepare yourself for things that will be messy because along with my phrase, everyone gets a turn, but it's not always your turn. They always say science is messy sometimes. So that's, and don't panic. Because sometimes we'll be like, oh my goodness, do we have to panic? And they're like, Miss Jennie, we don't have to panic. So I guess those are key things I want to send them out in the world with. Life is messy sometimes. Science is messy sometimes. Waiting your turn is crucial because the world is full of people and we don't have to panic. We can figure it out. So, and then I wanted to share a few notes on materials and outdoor settings. With anything that I do in science or my STEAM room or the outdoor classroom, I always look at what we have. I've worked at a lot of places that do not have a lot of money, period. My first few years of science, my mission on earth was to never spend money on anything. If I couldn't find it for free or make it myself, we didn't need it. So start with what you have. The little humans don't care if it's fancy or costs a lot if they can touch it, use it, or manipulate it as part of a lesson or in play. And in some of the pictures I show later, you'll see this stuff I probably found on the curb or someone gave it to me, which is my next point. If people know you are the crazy preschool teacher, they will give you stuff to be the crazy preschool teacher. These are people at my church, parents at my schools, friends that just know me and know what I do. It's always, do you want this? Can you use this? Would your students like this? And no matter what, my answer is always yes, because I want them to always check with me first. I've trained my current school that nothing gets thrown away until I see it. You have to show it to me first because I could probably use it as a loose part or I could repurpose it for something. For example, one of our music teacher collects those little mini things that come in like little plastic orbs. I don't even know what they're called. And she had like a whole tub of these plastic two-piece things. And she's like, can you use them? I didn't know what I needed them for, but I said yes. And then we put life cycles inside of them. So it's like a secret. You don't know what life cycle you have. It's a mystery. I've also used them to put together track casting kits that the kids can take home after we've cast tracks in class. So, like I said, the answer is always yes. Because it's free. Like people want to share. And I had a teacher that her school did a science, I don't know what they call it in schools now, where you do like a whole new textbook adoptions. And for some reason, everything from the past has to go away. And there was an entire box full of biodegradable plant pots that somebody was going to get rid of. And I was like, oh no, you can't get rid of those. And we've been using those and using those and using those. So let people know you're the crazy preschool teacher and they will give you lots of cool things. And then be on the lookout for materials. When I walk around my neighborhood or walk around my school, we have lots of trees that drop lots of seeds and lots of leaves and lots of cool things. And so collecting those and using those as loose parts or lesson materials. Um, and then a big thing I want everybody to know is an outdoor classroom is just an outdoor space in which learning occurs. Use the outdoor classroom space that you have. Um, because your young learners do not need a forest. They just need some dirt, maybe some plants. They're good. So my first school that I was at was in downtown Garland. So on the right side, you can see the church building, and then we had pretty standard playground setup. We did have some grassy, sandy parts, and then we had the mulch playground. And then on the far side by that back shed was where our garden space was, which you can see in the lower left-hand corner. Originally, there was a play structure in the center. They called it the Big Green Monster because it was this huge, big, weird climbing structure that, of course, we couldn't let the little humans go on. And so it was always no, no, no. And then thankfully, an Eagle Scout came and tore the whole thing out so that we could turn it into a garden. But again, it's just using the space that we have in the lower right-hand corner. You can see us just we're on the blanket, we're doing worms. So, like I said, this is in the middle of downtown Garland and just using the space that we have. And then the little church-based preschool that I was at, right after COVID, we had on the upper left-hand side, you can see it's just a very small play space that was for our toddler humans. And but we provided a lot of just loose parts, pots and pans, shovels, things like that. In the center, you can see two of our little people. They were digging for roly-polies. In the right-hand corner, this little boy, this was his work every day that we went outside. And there's another picture of him later. And he would come inside literally fully covered with dirt. But that was where he wanted to be. He would go in the little house and just dig. He didn't, sometimes just with his hands, sometimes he'd have a little construction toy, sometimes he'd have a shovel. It didn't matter. That was just like, this is what I need to do. So, and then you can see we've got lots of digging. We are all about the digging and exploring, but especially the ones you see in the center, that was their work to go along the perimeter of the playground and try to find as many living things as they could. And then this is my space at North Star, and this doesn't even kind of show how big it is. So on the right-hand side, you can see the parking lot, and on the other side of the parking lot is where the school building is. So this is like we cross the parking lot, and then there's I think it's a utility easement, but because there's a power line that you can see in one of the pictures that runs through there. But it's a huge section of space that is all of ours. And we're very blessed because it's surrounded by trees. There are trees in the outdoor classroom. Obviously, you can see lots of dirt opportunities. The covered thing that's in the left-hand corner, that's our sandbox, which I try to open it every time that I'm out there, I know it drives some of the teachers crazy because you have to empty sand out of the shoes, but digging in sand is one of those like sensory, but it builds those motor skills. I mean, we've had kids on messy day, I open the sandbox and we've had people, they dig like a lake and then they transport all the water and then they're like, but wait, the water doesn't stay and they have to keep filling. Anyway, it's total mayhem, but it's wonderful. And then you can kind of see it in the lower picture. There's some bins across there, and about once a year we fill those up with one gets mulch, one gets just pebbles, like the path pebbles. I think they filled one up with sand before, just natural materials that then the kids relocate to goodness knows where. And then, of course, those also become houses and laboratories and whatever they want them to. We've had some be bone shops because I've brought bones to the outdoor classroom before. I had a friend with a property that had cattle bones all over the place. So I collected all the cattle bones but of course, to the kids, they are not cow bones. They are dinosaurs. So it doesn't matter how many times I tell them or how many, what evidence I present. They're just like, no, Miss Jennie, they are dinosaurs. So I've had that be a bone shop before. So there's all sorts of things that they come up with. All right, so science lesson. Oh, are there any questions in the chat or anything like that
Nope,
before I
no questions.
launch
Just
into this? I know I talk a lot, and I know I probably look like I'm kung fu fighting because I talk with my hands so much. So
no, the
apology.
comments are just an amazing amount of space. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. When honestly, when I went to interview at North Star, I was like, I will say or do whatever I have to be able to work here. So, just in that space, I was just like, this is amazing. And that's actually one of the things when I first went there, they were like, I don't know how we can fit another special in because they'd never done science before. And then the director's like, wait a minute, we have this dedicated outdoor time. What if you taught there? And it was like, okay, done. And it was definitely a different pace and a different kind of, but I was like, we're doing this.
I love
So,
all the earth play.
oh yeah. Yeah. Like I said, the things that they do, I mean, I have to bring a shovel in my car every time I'm scheduled in the outdoor class or on my days because they're constantly, Miss Jennie, can you dig with us? Miss Jennie, can you dig with us? And I think they like it because I can dig really deep and then they can excavate everything else. So
Good.
have
We
to be
do have
prepared.
one more question here from Lindsay. She's wanting to know what kind of tools do you have out in the space?
Oh, and I have a picture at the very end of our shed because I know not everybody has a shed, but we have little shovels, little rakes. We had a couple of little hoes, but little humans don't know how to use those quite as safely as we would like. So I kind of just moved those. I mean, anything can be a weapon, obviously, but we want to teach them to use things safely. So we have those traditional things. Some of them are metal, some of them are plastic. I think I have a picture of our plastic shovels too. We've got hand tools, and then we just have bins of, I guess you'd call them like mud kitchen supplies there's a catering service that's part of the church that when they get rid of old stuff. So we have like metal food service tongs and spatulas and big metal spoons and big pots and pans and just things like that. I'm trying to think what else. So I guess those would be our tools. Lots of plastic containers, food, even like, grapes or strawberries or blueberries or because I bring it out there, they play with it for a while. When it gets tatty, you just throw it away. It didn't cost you anything, and it gave it a second life before it had to go to the recycle or whatever. Lots of bottles, lots of containers to fill and dump. Trying to think. I think that, I mean, those are the things I would consider tools. We do have dress up things out there. Like I've got like construction vests that we get out sometimes. We've got umbrellas, we've got bug nets, um, sifters. And then these are like from Dollar Tree or whatever. It doesn't cost, or just go to the thrift store. Oh my God, thrift store. I didn't even put thrift stores on my list. Thrift stores are the greatest place on the planet because I'll go in and I'm just going in to see what there is. And then like you go to the kitchen, oh my gosh, there's sifters, there's salad spinners, there's all sorts of things. And again, sharing with my parents especially at the beginning of the year. I mean, I do it at specials open house, but I also send out messages on our ProCare app and on Facebook. And it's like, hey, if you have things that you're sorting out and you're not sure what to do with them, or you have, check with me. I bet we could use those. And so that's the tires that we have in the outdoor classroom were donated by one of our parents that owned a tire shop, and we've drilled holes so they don't hold water, but the kids manipulate those all over the place. We've got lumber, we've got playground dividers that people were getting rid of, and I brought, so the sky is the limit. I mean, I guess I just have a really overly active imagination, or I'm insane, either way. But it's like I look at something, it's like, okay, I don't know what they're going to do with it, but if it's safe. So like some of the lumber and things that I brought out there were left over. I'm involved in scouting. So lots of times when people do an Eagle project, there's leftover parts of lumber or whatever. So I sand down the rough edges. So there was one where they had 4x4s, a section probably 2 feet, 1 foot to 2 foot long. And one edge was rough. So I brought them home and I just sanded the edges with sandpaper. So there weren't lots of splinters or anything like that. And then I put them out there, and you'll see them in the pictures as we go through at the end, and they just do tons of things. I found little pallets that people are getting rid of. I just, make sure that the nails are nailed in and it's sanded and stuff like that. I had a friend give me a section of, I guess it's bamboo fencing that's like wired together. And her neighbor was getting rid of it. She's like, come over with your car. I think we can get it in there. Da, 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 da. For so long. Like it was probably in the outdoor classroom for a year before it started kind of breaking apart and I had to remove it or whatever. And of course, I looked at it and I was thinking Gilligan's Island, that is a raft. And that was the first thing the kids did with it. But every time I would come out there, it was in a different place, serving a different purpose. So, I mean, that was a long answer to that question. So, hopefully,
No, you hit all the good things, though. It is about giving them the materials and observing what they do.
right. And it's like I'm always thinking like I think safety, but not in an overly cautious way. I'm mainly thinking like, are they going to get cut or are they going to get scraped just by moving it? Because honestly, in all the time I've worked in the outdoor classroom, I think I've only known of 2 injuries and they were both teachers. So it's not the kids. And one of them was the teacher coming over, and I know this is going to sound judgmental, to fuss at the kid to be careful. And she distracted him and he dropped what he was carrying on her foot. Well, he was doing the thing. He wasn't, anyway. So, like I said, that was judgmental. Erase that from your mind. I'm not a judgmental person, but it's, so the kids, honestly, they get hurt on our traditional playground far more often, or in our gym far more often than I mean, sometimes there'll be a scrape or they'll fall down, but that's natural play, so that's one of the things we have in our shed is a first aid kit, so we have band-aids and things like that. But really, any major injuries have happened in the school building or on the regular playground, I guess I would say. So, all right. I will say, here endeth that lecture. I'll move on to the next part. So, science lessons for outdoor spaces. The thing I tried to focus on so everyone has some ideas to take with you is what do you have available in your environment and how can it be used for science exploration? So obviously, the number one thing that you have in your outdoor environment is soil. Wonderful. And I spend all the years the kids are with me teaching them to call it soil and not dirt. Dirt is soil where we don't want it to be. But soil is like living and complex and so important, and it's a whole ecosystem unto itself. So, dirt may be something you sweep up off the floor, but this is soil that we are dealing with out here. So, soil exploration and earth materials. I have done lessons on the differences in the different kinds of soil between sand, silt, loam, humus. We got tons of clay around here. If I dig at an inch down, we're hitting clay. And so the kids love to manipulate it and do all those sorts of things. And of course, rocks, soils by feel and size. Uh, I have a book and it's from a junior master gardener program. And I don't even know where I got the book, but it had lots of activities that you could teach the kids the difference in the sizes of soil. So obviously your silt's going to be really small particles. So maybe you have a marble. And I use cornstarch so they can kind of feel what that feels like and how it absorbs. Silt can absorb a lot of liquid. And then you've got sand, so that's a little bit bigger. And then your loam soils or your clay soils a little bit bigger. So you can use different size balls. You can, have just the actual materials. That's these buckets that I have here at the bottom is whenever we've done sedimentation or soil building, I usually have just buckets full of soil that I've either dug in the outdoor classroom or when I was at my other settings that didn't have the space that I have at North Star, I dig it out of my backyard. Um, and I've also done this inside. That's what I was telling Beth before the presentation started. At my other school, I would bring in buckets of soil or a big bin full of worms, and we would just do this inside. So you don't have to have a lot of space, or if the weather's not cooperating with you, you can do some of the. I love collecting heavy tablecloths and we'll just cover the whole floor with that and that kind of thing. So on the left hand side, these are just sedimentation trays. Before I had these, I just used aluminum pans. I've seen sedimentation activities that you can do with a cut in half 2 liter bottle. That will be free. And my aluminum pans, I usually have donated to me. So anyway, we set up the bottom or the very top one is just sand and a little bit of soil. But we talk about, okay, well, what happens when the water starts to flow? Why does this happen? And then what can we do about it? So that's focusing on erosion. And then I let them build up. So these are the bottom two are different creations that the class have come. Okay, well, what can we do to make that not happen or not happen as fast? And so that's where they're coming up with, okay, everybody gets to pick what do we need to add to this? Do we need to add more leaves? I've even had little plants that, little things of grass that I've used before too. Do we need leaves? Do we need rocks? Is it the mixtures of the soil? Do we need mulch? And of course, all of those things help mitigate the erosion. And then I just have a big camelback with a little hose thing so I can regulate the water flow. But you could use just a watering can because that does the same thing. Typically, I'm controlling the water, but you can let your little humans do that too. And then we see, okay, well, how long did it take for the top one, the soil to move? How long did it take once we put our mitigation measures in? And why is preventing this erosion important? And of course, that's the importance of the soils and the plant for the plants. And then the animals or the creatures that live there. So, and then You can also use something similar if you're talking about the rock cycle and how sedimentation happens. And then what I always love is anytime we've talked about something, then I'll come out and I'll see examples of where the kids are like, "Oh, I'm trying to prevent erosion here," or I'm trying, so it's like you just plant that little seed and then they run with it. And then on the right hand side, these are just different examples of soils that I dug out of my yard to use for some of our soil activities. All right. So continuing with soils, um, the bottles that you see, this is the soil analysis. I talk about soil scientists are called podologists. They analyze types of soil. We've already, we would have already talked about the different types of soils that we might have. And I've done this activity lots of different ways. The picture of the jar kind of shows you how things layer out because of size and mass and things like that. So sometimes I've had students bring their own soil sample from home, and everybody has their own bottle for their soil sample. And then you add water and then you shake, shake it, shake it, shake it, and then you just let it settle. The picture with all of those bottles, we did it by class. I brought lots of different types of soil. Everybody got to pick what they added to the jar. We noted what was added to the jar. Then we added our water. Everybody got to shake it. Then it got to sit. In the center with the little yellow lines, because of the way the schedule was working this year, I just brought soil samples from the outdoor classroom and then we analyzed them as a class. In the upper right hand corner, this is where we talked about percolation and filtration. So I've done this where in this example, we actually built soil horizons. So we talked about the different levels in so you start with your bedrock and then your weathered rock, and so that we built that up. And then we make dirty water and we pour it through the soil and we see how our soils can actually clean our water. Also, it shows the soils hold on to the water because we pour in a whole bunch of dirty water and this much comes out. Okay, well, where's the rest of it? What is it doing? And then in the center, um, I've done soil examination and sampling. I made these little sheets, and it's just kind of getting them to think about soils are different colors, soils are made up of different things. You can find lots of things when you dig down in the earth, including one of the pictures there is trash, and we talk about, unfortunately, we find that too. And I've done it where we take samples from our outdoor classroom, and sometimes the students bring their own samples, and we just kind of study that. So that would be an easy thing to adopt for inside too, depending on what works for you and your class. And then the upper picture is just for an internet picture of soil horizons that I show the kids along with the diagram of the different layers. And then in the lower left-hand corner, I have these they're like soil viewers, but you could do the same thing in the 2-liter bottles that are cut in half and inverted. So we built soil horizons and we talked about what the different and we've weathered rocks before with mortars and pestles. We've done lots of things like that. And then obviously the sedimentation. And then obviously there's tons of rocks outside too, which the kids love to show me all of the rocks. And they think I know every rock that ever was created. So again, I have to crush their world and tell them I don't know everything about rocks, but we'll figure out what we're looking at. And so I've talked about the rock cycle, which this is your opportunity to do volcanoes. So the kids love that. And then we've made little rock cycles, which is what the paper in the middle. So the igneous rock is just a little chip of lava rock, which is easy to come by. For sedimentation, we glue like our sand particles. And then for the metamorphic, we take 2 different kinds of Play-Doh and we crush it and twist it and mush, as it happens when things get pushed down and the rocks get changed. So I've also, and I didn't have a picture of it, but I also found a recipe in one of my rock books for making sandstone. So you take your dry sand and then you water down just regular Elmer's glue. I called it my million-year solution, because it takes millions and millions of years for sedimentary rock to get crushed together. But you pour that over, it saturates the sand and solidifies it, and then they have a little chunk of sandstone to take home. So I've done that as a project too. And then obviously soil building, the whole reason why I try to encourage them to call it soil instead of dirt is we have all of our decomposers always working in our outdoor classroom. And I really emphasize all the different decomposers, even if we think they're creepy and weird, they have a very important job to do because nobody wants to live amongst dead things. We do not want to be buried in dead things, whether those are dead leaves, dead animals, dead plants, whatever. And thank goodness we have these very important organisms. Life science is a big part of the TEKS, that break this down and turn it back into soil. So whenever we are doing, I lost my train of thought. Whenever we're focusing on life science in the fall, this is where my heart is. I live for decomposers. And when we bring out the worms, like some of the kids that have been in my science class since they were 18 months old, worms are their absolute favorite thing that we do every year. And even after we've done them and we've composted with them and we've released them, they're like, you need to get more worms. And I'm like, no, you need to find more worms, get to digging. In the upper right-hand corner, that's a log dissection that we've done. If I find small logs in my neighborhood, I bring them and let them start decomposing in my yard. And then I've brought them and I have them in a tub. So I set the log in the tub and we start tearing it apart. And of course, everything in the log starts going and running for the hills. But we talk about who are we finding, what is happening inside the log. There's a great book, I think it's in the upper left-hand, A Log's Life. So we've talked about that. We've talked about like, that's a whole habitat. That's, lots of living things in there. So it's giving them that permission. Like, yes, there are things at work. Let's observe. We're not killing them as they run out of their log. We're going to release them peacefully. And then there's a log with obviously lots of fungus. We've got tons and tons of just logs that have been brought to our classroom that start decomposing. And once we've done a log dissection or we've talked about decomposers or both, I'll come out and I can see the kids starting to like pull the bark off or starting to pull apart the pulpy part of the logs and everything. And they're doing that. And I don't even have to teach them like how cover boards and things like that work to find lots of creepy crawlies. They learn that when we do decomposers and we start flipping logs. There are some kids that's their work for the next month is flipping logs and finding what you can find. Now, obviously, I teach them if you see ants, just let them go about their ant business. We're not collecting them because they're well aware, being Texas children, that some of those ants bite. But mostly what we find are just like the little teeny tiny ants that are living their best ant life in our outdoor classroom. And then the bottom pictures, this is all of our worms. So the big bin with the big hands and little hands in it down in the right hand corner, that's the size bin that I've used inside as well. I just get night crawlers from Walmart and they're the perfect size. So you can talk all about worm anatomy, but they're easy to hold. They're very resilient worms. I have used red wigglers as well with my older kids, and we've done shoebox composters with them. The center bottom picture, I have two big glass aquariums that were given to me, and we set up a composting activity after we've talked all about decomposers and how wonderful worms are and all the important things they do. We build a habitat for them. We put all sorts of different foods in there. You can see we've got crackers and cucumbers and tomatoes and some banana peels and cabbage and corn. We got all sorts of things in there. And we take it, we're collecting data, we're data collectors. So we keep track of everything that's in there. We cover it all up, we water it really good, and then we let them work for about 4 weeks. Then we dump them all back out, which is their favorite thing because some of the soil doesn't want to come out and you can see the tunnels, and then there's worms going, don't let me fall out and everything. And honestly, almost everything is gone, which to them is like, where did it go? Oh my goodness. And now we have learned over time, worms do not like cookies. So just be aware of that. It's very interesting. The kids don't understand why they don't like cookies, but it's just not their fave. And then we usually do a big worm release where they can take them and let them go wherever they want in the outdoor classroom. Um, so again, decompose, and it's inexpensive. Uh, the soil I've dug out of my own yard or in the outdoor classroom, the worms are not very expensive. You get lots of teaching value out of it. You can maintain your worm bins as long as you want. And the great thing is you just need two worms to have baby worms. So usually at the end of the 4 week period, we also have baby worms. So you could start your own worm growing business as a side hustle. I don't know, but it's a lot of fun. They enjoy it a lot. And then just open exploration with soil. This isn't even like I'm teaching them anything. This is just them digging. So I've put soil in our various sensory bins. Again, this is my buddy from my little preschool. He's digging in his little house. The lower right-hand corner, we do a messy day at the end of every year at North Star. And the very first year, they were very hesitant to let me do this in the outdoor classroom. So the very first year, we made seed bombs. If you haven't made those before, you just need potting soil, seeds, and then like air dry clay. And then you kind of mush it all together with the seeds and everything. And then they can just like put them in their flower beds. So that was a messy activity that we could do. The second year, they let me do um, messy day in the outdoor classroom with the bigger kids, the little ones, the twos and toddlers. They didn't want them in the outdoor classroom with the mud and the water and all the things. So the lower right-hand corner, we did mud painting. So lots of soils, very open-ended. What ended up happening is the kids are just digging in the mud bins, but that's okay because that's what I want them to do. And so then by the third year, they let me set up a mud kitchen for the twos and toddlers with just big mud bins. And I put two old kitchens out there with lots of tools and everything, and then they could just get as muddy as they want. The lower left-hand corner is the remnants of the world's largest mud puddle that the threes and fours came up with the first year we were in. Well, they do it every year now. The reason all the logs are there is, of course, it takes days and days and days for this puddle to dry up. So I put all the logs there so it's not just full dive in mud time when they come to the outdoor classroom. But oh my gosh, these kids, it's all about, we've got to make this puddle bigger. We've got to haul all this water. We've got to add all this soil. And then they're just stomping and they're covered in mud. And some of them prefer to do all that in the sandbox, but that's okay because it's all about they're in charge of it and they just have a great time. So I slowly wore my people down to it's okay that we are covered in mud. That is all right. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. We
And
are
then we
getting,
do,
Jenny,
oh,
we're
sorry.
getting close to the
Oh,
end
I am so
of our
sorry.
time. No, that's okay. This has been wonderful, and I feel like we probably need to do a part two.
I
Um,
know. I was like, we're only halfway through.
so, let's do like final tips
Okay,
for a
so
minute
I'm
or
just going to
so.
quickly go through so you guys can see some of the
Absolutely,
things in
absolutely.
so we do gardening. These are different gardening things that we've done. Okay, then plants, flowers, leaves, and seeds. Lots of different, these are things I pulled out of the planting bins that they were getting rid of. I brought them out. The kids went crazy. We've done flower dissection and leaf observation. And then I do a plant and tree walk. And then sometimes you bring the outdoor classroom in, and then they find things. And these are all things that they have found and we investigated. And some of them are not always alive when they bring them to me, but that's okay. And then we make other observations about animal sign. And then we're getting into the child-led play. So I just want to show you some of the things that we have in our outdoor classroom that I've brought: painted rocks, pumpkins, stepping stones, bones, rocks, tree cookies, logs. And then these are the things that the kids build. And all because they have the permission to do that. So I'll come out and there's whole new structures, whole new. Oh, and I do a bait when we do basic needs. I set my tent up. We do science in the tent. But yeah, these are all. This is them. Their brains are amazing. And then this is my shed. These are all the different types of materials that we have. We have traditional things like trucks and things like that. I set up a pulley in the outdoor classroom that they can haul stuff up and down. We've done this in a couple of different locations. Boxes, pallets, wood, just they go crazy with all of this. And then these are just some final thoughts. So not only should we encourage them to be brave, we should be brave. Just, like I said, I provide the things, they provide the minds that keep it going, leading with curiosity and following theirs, using real world examples, real world things. Like I said, the mud kitchen stuff, that's not play kitchen stuff. That's like real kitchen stuff. Encouraging exploration and getting a little messy, and believing in our little humans and their amazing brains.
I
So
love
sorry I talked so long. I was just like, oh,
No, this was amazing information. And I'm serious about a part two on this.
okay.
So we'll get together and we'll plan that for everybody so we can do a part two because these are just beautiful units. And being able to see so much in action. But I love just your organic way of letting children be children and teaching them science. Like we can do both, you
Yes,
know.
yes, absolutely.
So that's amazing. We did have one question, and everybody's hanging with us, so we'll go ahead and answer that question. Lindsay wants to know what cleanup looks like.
That's a great question. So that is one of the challenges when I first came to North Star, that the teachers were hesitant to get things out because they're like, oh, they don't want to clean up. I try to make it a game, because if we just give up and like, oh, I don't want to set anything out, well, then that's more work for us. So whether they're little humans or it's like, okay, who can find all of the garden tools? Ready, set, go. And then everybody's like running all over and they're like wanting to bring you all the things. Okay, everybody go pick up one thing in each hand. And then everybody's running all over, and you always will have kids that are just, no, I am not ever going to clean anything up. That's not a hill I want to die on. But as much as I can, I try to make it a game. I try to show the teachers, hey, we can make it a game. And that's totally fine. Just everybody grab two things and bring it over here. Typically, if I get a lot of things out, I am not going to be like every single thing has to be picked up out of the outdoor classroom. For one reason is some people, like when I'm not there in the outdoor classroom with the kids, sometimes people don't want to get stuff out. So if there's like little hidden things that they can find and use, great, I'm okay with that. And I also recognize, like, if they bring like 70, even like 60, 50% of the stuff over here, then I just kind of do a sweep. Okay, bring everything else, and then I'll put it back in the shed, just because that's too much for them to do. But yeah, I guess, and even in the classroom inside, I try to make it a game. Okay, wait a minute, I found that. Where does this go? Can you show me where this goes? And it's like, if they're like, oh my gosh, I get to know what's going on, and she doesn't know, I'm not saying we're tricking the kids, but I'm just like, this is a tool. If it's make it a competition. Oh my gosh, with my fours and fives, if you make something a race, they will kill themselves trying to do whatever it is. It's like if I can find the most things, or if I can, whatever, or how fast can you do this? So yeah, I mean, I hope that helps, but yeah. So
Absolutely.
it's mostly, especially if it's a lot of the things I've gotten out, I'm like, just get it over to the shed and then I take it from there because that's less stress for the teachers, less stress for the kids. They don't, organizing everything is not going to be their thing. I have visited other outdoor classrooms that have like outdoor storage that the kids can access. One of my schools had like one of those, it's like a patio box or something like that. So basically, we just like, okay, everybody back, everything goes in here or whatever. Definitely bins, baskets, things like that. If they know where stuff's supposed to go, like for my trucks, I've got two big bins. It's like, okay, all the trucks just go in here. So they do take ownership, and then if holding that expectation that if I'm going to get all this stuff out, then we're going to shove it all back over here. And this is the parking area for the trikes or this, that kind of thing. And I mean, the kids, like, there's always going to be ones who are going to resist that, but part of that is their control too. So just, it's like, I'm not going to fight with that, but for the most
Right.
part, they take ownership of the space and they want to have all of the things. So, and I've also visited schools that they're not hung up on everything has to go back and live in a specific area. And it very much is like an organic space that's always changing and the kids' work gets to stay and stuff like that. So it's, kind of your school's vibe and what works for your kids. But making it a
Beautiful.
game or a competition, woo, watch out.
For sure. And I appreciate that the children have that autonomy of putting it back where it is, wherever
Mhm.
it goes, and they're part of that process of doing that.
Yeah,
Good. Thank you so, so much for all this
absolutely.
wonderful information today, and we'll definitely be in touch. Thank you all for hanging out and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah. Happy weekend.
Yes. I did put a survey in the chat if you would take a moment, if you haven't already.